for future use as well. So our mission statement, our services are all about transforming lives by providing support and fostering partnership that empowers people to live the lives they want. And when we look at that, we are a service that is birth through adulthood, so upon end of life. So we really are looking at the big picture. And do you have to move it, or Mimi, can I? Okay.
I got it.
So what is a developmental disability? The disability must originate. It's a diagnosis before the age of 18. It can be continued, or it continues, or can be expected to continue indefinitely, and it constitutes a substantial limitation to the individual. And these are our categories of DD eligibility. So the first is intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism, other neurological or other conditions similar to intellectual disability, and the last being developmental delay, which is a temporary eligibility until the age of 10. And when we look at autism too, there are different criteria that we can talk about that later as well. So here are the steps, and we will actually look at the application, so that we're kind of excited about that piece.
Excuse me, can you go to screen share? Because oh wait, never mind, I found it. Sorry, it's my fault.
Okay.
Never mind, sorry.
So what is our process for the application? A parent and representative signs and submits the request for DD eligibility determination and other forms. The documentation can be provided with an application, and DDA will, sorry, I have something in my way, will assist with getting records if a signed consent is provided. If DDA has insufficient information to determine you are eligible and has not received all the requested documentation, and again, we will talk about that, DDA may deny your eligibility after 90 days from the date of application. I do know that our eligibility team works individually with you when they do need certain documentation. So you will have opportunities via phone or email to hopefully work toward all the documentation that is needed. At the point that your son or daughter becomes eligible, the applicant, you or your family will receive what is called a planned action notice regarding the eligibility decision, which could be she or he is eligible or not eligible. The becoming eligible does not guarantee access to a paid service from DDA, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So Mimi.
Okay, so this here is the actual application that people have to fill out. And so one thing that, so I do want to add that, you know, we are not in the intake and eligibility department. So if there are specific questions, Chris and I might not be able to answer because that's not our area of expertise. But of course, we are able to explain as much as possible. And then if there's something that's needs a little more detail, we'll definitely refer you to intake and eligibility. But one thing that they wanted us to point out is that when you're filling out the application, just make sure you're going through each box and make sure that if you need documents to be translated, please be sure to indicate that. And so that's why we've circled it and put in the circle and an arrow, you know, please let us know that you need documents to be translated.
And we do have applications in Spanish and other languages as well.
Yes. And then also please indicate who the representative is, as in, you know, is it mom, dad? If it is a legal guardian, please make sure that you complete that. So, you know, if you have copies of guardianship paperwork, that's very helpful to have. And then make sure that you sign as well. Sometimes I think they get back the applications and parents or guardians will forget to sign where it says signature of applicant or parent. So it's really important. And then again, there's a section where it says to request an interpreter, or if the person needs interpretation or translation, just make sure that you're completing that section as well. In terms of the consent, so one thing that's super important, and I think when you're filling out the application, the main thing is, you know, filling out the initial, all of it is super important, right? There's a cover sheet, there's step-by-step directions, but you're right, it can be very overwhelming because there is specific things that they're looking for. But what we will tell families, fill out the application, send what you have. If you don't have something, DDA can help you request records. It just could slow down the process a little bit. And so it's super important that you're connecting with the intake and eligibility case manager, you know, to see if they're having trouble locating records or if they have any questions about the application, because sometimes it could just be that maybe someone didn't send like an IQ score, or, you know, like your neurologist didn't send specific documentation, so they're not able to confirm a diagnosis. Because overall, that's what they need, is to confirm that the client has a developmental disability and meets the criteria. So, you know, please make sure that you're filling out each box, your name, the name of the client, date of birth, the address, identification number. So the identification number would be like if you are already in the Medicaid system, it would be like your provider, or if you're in the DDA system, it could be like your, what we call your ADS ID. It's the unique identifier. So most clients don't have that yet. So that typically is blank, but make sure that in the section of providers that you're clicking who has this information, whether it's the neurologist, whether it's primary care providers, school district, mental health providers, make sure that you complete that. And then in the next box where it says I authorize and consent to sharing documents, make sure that you complete all of those sections as needed. And then again, make sure that you're signing and dating in those areas. Also, when we have you guys apply for DDA services, we also ask that you complete this form right here, and that's basically in the application process, you're given like a brochure informing you of your privacy rights. And so this right here is just an acknowledgement that you have received it, and we do need that back. So please make sure that you sign and date that along with the packet.
I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second. There was
Sure.
a question in the chat box, especially now during COVID, where would be the best place to obtain application? Oh,
you can
go ahead.
Oh, you can go to, at the very end of the presentation, there are some links that we will provide, but just right now, just to let you know, you can actually go to, if you Google State of Washington Developmental Disabilities Administration, there on the left-hand side, there's a section where it says eligibility, and you can actually print out those forms, but also you can call the DDA office. We do have staff that can mail out applications to families directly, or even, you know, Chris and I are going to leave our contact information. So if you need an application, you can reach out to either Chris or I, the DDA office online, or you can even call the DDA Intake and Eligibility office directly in Tacoma. Is that helpful? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then again, so application tips, as I mentioned, make sure that, so sometimes what people will fill out an application and they will get a doctor's note saying that their child has a diagnosis of autism, like it's just like a prescription note, a doctor's note. That would not be sufficient for them to be able to confirm eligibility. They need full, thorough testing. And the autism, like for example, with autism, you know, that they need the full scale that needs to be completed to confirm an autism diagnosis. In some scenarios, like IQ is needed as well to confirm like Down syndrome or even autism as well. So it's super important that any provider that could potentially have any information regarding the diagnosis, whether it's school, medical professionals, anyone that might have information that you, if you have it, send it along. If you don't have it, make sure that you let the intake and eligibility department know who could might have records regarding your family member. Let's see. So there is a question regarding DDA eligibility. And so we do renew eligibility at, or we go through an eligibility review at 4, 10, and 21, or right, or 20, I'm sorry, 20. But you will get a planned action notice informing you that their eligibility is going to need to be reviewed. And so then you would just, again, send the application, send what you have, and then they'll go through the process. Okay, so in this slide, we're going to talk about does DDA eligibility expire? Again, as long as you're current, if the disability does not change, if the diagnosis does not change, and there are, you know, and you're able to prove that they continue to meet the guidelines, they would continue to be eligible for DDA. So like I said, you'll get something typically around 6 months prior to the birth date. If reapplication is not received, a plan action notice is sent within 90 days prior to the birth date. So oftentimes we get this issue where people will call us and they're exiting out of early intervention, and they're concerned about getting services or that their services are going to expire, or sometimes people will give us a call and they're like, you know, very worried that they've lost services. So this is the planned action notice is a notification like, hey, we need you to follow up on this and complete the paperwork to intake and eligibility so that they can review the status. Let's see, if application is not received within 60 days of birth date, the client's eligibility will expire and the reapplication is treated as a new intake. So if you do not complete everything that is required from intake and eligibility, like let's say you send just the initial packet, if you do not follow up with them or you do not respond to their request, they will have to terminate the eligibility, and then of course you'll get a planned action notice informing you that they are no longer eligible. Okay, let's see. So again, we review eligibility right before 20, well, unless the initial determination was made at age 16. So if the client became eligible around that time, typically individuals don't have to renew eligibility because they honor that they had just recently gone through eligibility. Prior to authorization of paid services, if the client's age is 19 or older, most recent determination is completed to June 1st. So like in some scenarios, people have been clients or eligible for services for a long time and their application had not been renewed during that time. They will review if it comes to a case manager's attention, because all of the cases were supposed to have been reviewed, then they would have to update the information and review to confirm that the client continues to meet eligibility. At any age, there's evidence that the current eligibility determination is based on insufficient mistaken or fraudulent information, they can also review eligibility. Again, like I said, clients are sent a notice for review prior to their 19th birthday. You must return consent forms to DDA to obtain any updated, or make sure that you have all of your client information updated. So oftentimes what happens is that people will not have access DDA services. And because we go off of the most recent address, if we're sending any planned action notices and you moved and you didn't let DDA know, you might be missing out on renewing your eligibility because we didn't know that you moved. So it's super important that whenever you move, if you're not receiving services, but you are on what we call the no paid caseload, services caseload, make sure that you're connecting with DDA to let us know about an address update. Okay.
Do you want me to take on?
Yeah, sure.
So our eligibility timeframe, availability review timeframe is actually set by the Washington Administrative Code, which is called the WAC, and we are not able to make exceptions. Intake and eligibility case managers have 90 days to make a decision regarding eligibility. And as Mimi mentioned earlier, we are not, the intake and eligibility case managers are in our Tacoma office. So as we work directly with them, and we can certainly support you as you're doing your paperwork and getting documentation, but they are the experts. So just that information. Again, the other piece is turning in any copies of documentations that support that the individual has a developmental disability. So we do encourage, as you get different medical reports and school reports, that you do hold on to things, and then you can use them as you're applying for a service. At this point, there are currently no extensions for the application process during COVID-19. So that's just a heads up related to the fact that we're in COVID at this point. So how do I request services from DDA? If not a current DDA client, and we had, I think, Tajiji asked the question in chat, you can connect with our DDA Region 3 intake and eligibility and request an application. We can also, we can email it, like I believe I have an email to.
I would love to.
Send an email or an application to you.
I would love to if you send it. Sorry
Okay.
for interrupting.
You bet. You can also just call the DDA office and we can.
Do you have phone number there? I can't
Pardon?
see it. Oh, there is number there, yeah, on the stream. Is that the number here?
That's an 800 number. We can give you our direct line if you like.
Thank you, yes.
It's 360-418-6108.
418-6108. 360. Okay.
And
that's to the DDA Vancouver office.
Okay. I live in Vancouver too.
So I just put it in chat as well.
Thank you.
If eligible, and access to paid services starts with a request for services and a completed assessment. So we really encourage, as you get the planned action notice that your son or daughter is eligible, that you are going to call and ask for a paid service. And so we listed for Clark, Cowlitz, Thurston, and Skamania, here's an 888 number to request paid service. Rachel, I'll have to answer that question in a minute. And then the other piece is if rather than phoning in, you may call or you may do a request for services online at this email address. The Vancouver office email or a phone number that we put in chat, that is also a way to say, I received a letter saying my son or daughter is eligible. I would like to request a case manager to do an assessment. When you contact DD, oops.
Sorry,
okay.
sorry.
Actually, I don't see the bottom here.
Okay. I can just,
okay.
So when you contact DDA to request services, make sure you're including the client's name, date of birth, and also the service requested. A case manager will contact you to schedule an assessment. So oftentimes for new clients, like in the Vancouver area, it's usually me that's contacting all of the new people. But I just want to be clear in that just because you apply and are eligible through intake and eligibility, it doesn't automatically mean that you're eligible for DDA waiver services or personal care services, because an assessment has to be completed in order to see what level of support may be needed.
So one of the first services we often, a family might ask for is community first choice, which we call CFC. And it is a Medicaid funded program. Service. What is CFC? A program that assists with personal care tasks, provides assistance with everyday tasks like bathing, dressing, shopping, transportation, or managing your medication.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry about that. Tomorrow I have appointments with the doctor, my son doctor. Did I need to ask her for anything so you can need, because they give appointments we had 2 months, 3 months now during COVID. They don't give like appointment like anytime I talk. No. They send me way so long. So I'm afraid if I start application and you need something from the doctor and I can get it earlier by the time I have to finish my application. My question is, if you need something from the doctor, tomorrow I have appointments, so I can ask her to write letter for me or anything. Make sense?
Yes, good question. And as Mimi said earlier, it's not necessarily the doctor just giving the diagnosis on a report or a prescription page. It is it is asking your doctor for a referral or going through your son's health insurance to ask for an evaluation. Mimi, can you add anything else to that?
Joey, please. Sorry, guys.
So, Khadijah, you were saying that, so I guess the main thing is like, does your son have an official diagnosis, like intellectual disability, and we can talk later too, like I'm happy to call you tomorrow and we can further discuss if you want to. Would you prefer that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And we'll get your number before we move on. So don't hang up by the time we're done with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about interrupting.
Oh, no, it's okay.
No,
it's okay.
no.
I think your questions are helpful to everyone. It's just overall, just to remember, it's not just a simple doctor's note. It's like the client needs a thorough diagnostic confirmation that they have a specific developmental disability. Just an overall info.
Yes, good questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
What other services are available through Community First Choice or CFC? Relief Care, which provides personal care hours to another contracted provider to give relief to the primary personal care provider. We also have skills acquisition training to an individual to help increase their independence with personal care tasks. So it's a limited amount of hours per year, but it allows a provider to actually help a person learn how to do something as a paid provider. So it might be, I want to learn how to make my own lunch. So some of those hours, rather than just making lunch for your son or daughter, there are some hours available to help him make his lunch. And it could be simple, or it could be a 3-course lunch. It depends, what that interest and capability is. The other thing with another service is personal emergency response system. We call it this PERS. It's a system that allows a person to call for help easily. And this basic system is free. And this is generally, we generally use this service is generally for adults who might live alone or live with others and need this service in case of a fall or some other type of emergency. A couple other services are assistive technology and equipment. Technology and equipment that helps an individual become more independent and or perform personal care tasks without a provider. So that might look like, as your son and daughters are in school and they have a tablet or a small device for communication and for lists, making lists of to-do activities and that sort of thing. We can complement, or if he or she has that device at school, we have the ability to ask for something similar or the same, depending on the costs. We have the opportunity to ask for funding for your son or daughter to have that device at home to use on his or her behalf for communication and that sort of thing. Caregiver management training. And this is training to help an individual manage their care providers. So as an individual is overseeing their own care, they have an opportunity to receive some training to learn how to oversee that care.
And just really quickly, I just wanted to add like some cool things that we could, so this is separate from the personal care hours through CFC. It is a $500 allocation. I don't think we added that, but things that we have purchased for people, like Chris said, like an iPad with like the communication app, sometimes through the CFC program, or we've even purchased like medical alert bracelets that have fall detection. They can be purchased through this program as well.
Thank you. So community first choice, we're still on that. Who is eligible for this service? So as you request services for your son or daughter, a financial review is needed to determine financial eligibility, and an assessment is needed, and at the same time, an assessment is needed to determine functional eligibility for personal care and other services. So the financial review is not done by our office, it is done by long-term care. The assessment is actually what is done by our case resource manager. Who can provide services? CFC services. So we have individual providers. An individual provider generally comes for someone with young children or up to the age of 18. And a person would need an individual provider or a home care agency license, or conceivably moving on out of the residence, a licensed assisted living or adult family home provider. One thing that as you support your son or daughter and they're eligible for community first choice or personal care at the age of 18, a parent can actually become a provider. So that's something to think about. You would contract to be able to be the paid provider for your son or daughter. If not eligible for DDA, but you still need the services, children with Medicaid may qualify for services regardless of the DDA eligibility. Again, with Medicaid. So in that situation, you can request an assessment for personal care through our specialized caseload program. And we actually have 3 case managers that hold a number of people, maybe 10 to 15 on their caseload that are considered not eligible for DDA services, but have a need and benefit from personal care.
Okay, so again, we're gonna talk about resources. So where can you go? So here are the links where you can access information. The DDA application right here is a link. And then we have Informing Families on here. The Washington Autism Alliance, they're super helpful. And I think also filling out application. Sometimes they will attend IEP meetings. So they're a great resource to our community. And then of course, here's COVID information as well. I do have here, let me see if it'll let me click on it. But before I click on the flow chart, I want to just remind families. So for people who need personal care support and they're under the age of 18, but maybe don't qualify for DDA, but still need personal care assistance, DDA manages those kiddos that need personal care or CFC support. But if someone is over the age of 18 and does not qualify for DDA, we will often refer them to home and community services, and they can do an assessment for personal care. Let me see if I'm able to figure this out or if it opens. And hopefully you guys are able to see this. But Informing Families, if you guys have not had an opportunity to check out the website, it is super helpful. I tell my families about it all the time. I don't know why it's, oh, there we go.
Oh, good.
Just needed some time. But Informing Families, Building Trust is super informative and helpful. You can go to their website and it'll literally, you click on an age range and it'll provide you with whatever information as to steps, flow charts, anything that you should be looking to access for your child depending on their age. But this right here is a DDA flow chart. So, you know, here, if you are a client of DDA, you know, you just follow along what is appropriate for you. And so this provides a little bit of information regarding the things that might seem a little overwhelming, like the full IQ scales, adaptive skills testing, psychological reports, school reports. Oftentimes, like psychological or school records will have sometimes the IQ testing or adaptive skills testing. So that's kind of what they're looking for, but hopefully this is helpful flow chart. Let's see if I can figure out how to go back to the PowerPoint. Yes, close this out, right? Back here? No. Okay, I think we're done with the PowerPoint presentation though, right, Chris?
Yeah.